And so that's an encouraging thing that manufacturers are looking for areas of improvement. And, especially as we're able to track basically everything, you can fit that little barcode on a very small packaging and still have accurate data capture.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chains, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reid.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show.
Reid and I just had a great conversation with Chris Anderson at VUEMED. He works in the healthcare space and talked a lot about UDI, which is unique device identification. And it is so very important when you start thinking about healthcare and patient safety to understand what that device is from a medical perspective and what really you can get from that unique identification and knowing where a medical device is, which actually can be a Band-Aid all the way through the supply chain. So there's a lot of benefits of UDI, and there's a lot of compliance issues and pitfalls. And he's talked about what he's seen in industry to date. I already mentioned patient safety, and he did talk to us about where there can be improvement from a healthcare and patient safety perspective. So it was a great conversation. We really enjoyed it, and we really hope that you enjoy the show.
Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Reid.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you here with us today. Spend a little time, drop a little knowledge. But before we jump into that, just give our audience just a little bit of background on yourself, your company, and your current role.
Okay, certainly. My name's Chris Anderson. I'm the Director of Technical Program Management with VUEMED. I've been with VUEMED for almost a decade, working heavily in our data management and data analytics teams, as well as some of our technical operations. And VUEMED is an inventory management solution for hospitals to manage their inventory with a specific focus on implantable devices. And those are the type of devices that we'll be talking about today.
Right. So when we say implementable, is that the right way? Did I have that? Is this aluminium and aluminum, Liz?
Implantable.
Implantable.
So your
implantable device.
Yeah, your stents, your catheters, things of that nature, balloons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tiny things that you need to keep track of.
Absolutely. Things that are implanted into the patient, and then they walk out of the hospital and have a lifespan all their own.
That's wild.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. Amazing.
We've been talking a lot about food safety and regulations, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So there's also a lot of regulations from a healthcare perspective, one being unique device identification. And for those who are in the healthcare space, it just rolls off the tongue of UDI. Can you give us insight on what UDI is and how what you all do works together with that regulation?
Sure. So yeah, you got it right. Unique device identifier. And basically it's part of a system that was rolled out in about 2014 by the FDA. There's a system for a global identification system for medical devices. And it's not strictly limited to the devices that VUEMED focuses on, but this is what we are largely focusing on today. And basically, it's a unified system so that disparate entities such as hospitals, supply chains, suppliers, interested parties of any sort, because this is publicly available information, can have one single source of truth for things such as device features, but also tracking devices for recalls and patient outcomes and other analytic solutions.
So the recall bit, I mean, that's one that jumps off the page here. I mean, I just saw the auto industry recalling a whole bunch of cars for airbags and steering wheels and different types of things. But when it's your own body, it's a little bit different. I see the absolute benefit of recalls, but are there other benefits by having this all public and this unified system that you're seeing industry lean into?
Yeah, one of the major benefits that we are seeing in the field recently is hospitals and hospital managers being able to draw correlations between specific products and patient outcomes, being able to use analytics and all the data that they've been capturing for years and years and years, but now with a unified system, being able to draw strong correlations between different medical devices. On top of that, you can also manage and track physician preferences, because many physicians that are working on the same types of cases will have strong preferences for what kind of devices they use. And so there are additional insights to be gained there.
I didn't even think of the data part of it, Liz. Like, so we're looking at endless amounts, like just from digital or regular procurement of the hospital. By having physician preference, you can then start to almost forecast, like, this type of time of year, we do more surgeries related to this, which use more product. We need to have a little bit more in supply. And these are very elementary examples. But then on the other side, correlations between, maybe race or gender, because I have seen that, there's certain things that if you're from a different part of the globe, because of your ethnicity, you react a little bit different, to different things. We've seen some things. So is that like the correlations you're starting to talk about? Like, we have New York City or we have LA, and it's such a melting pot of the globe that you can start to kind of have correlations that can help out. Or maybe it's just geographical and it's not ethnicity, or, again, we're slicing and dicing data, but this is the correlation stuff that you're referring to.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of potential. If a proactive department is keeping close track of their case attributes, so the features of the case, and then they can combine that with a UDI-based device tracking mechanism, such as the one that VUEMED uses, there's basically no limit to the amount of insights they can gain.
When you talk about the unique identification, Reid and I, when we think of unique identification, we think about things like a G10, a global trade item number. Is that used, or how are GS1 standards used from a UDI perspective?
Yep. So in 2014, the GS1 standard was adopted. It was it was implemented in phases of different device types, and within a few years, basically the entire catalog of medical devices was incorporated into the G10 standard. And so that is precisely the unique identifier is a G10.
Well, look at that. That's so cool. I'm not in the healthcare space day in and day out. We have colleagues that do this work and they share stories with us. But when it comes together and we can hear how it's working in the real world, it's really cool and impactful. When you started talking about patient safety, what are the issues of patient safety? What are the pitfalls? One of our colleagues, who will remain nameless, says, Liz, never go to the hospital ever unless you absolutely have to. What's going on and what could be improved and how?
Oh, certainly. So I guess a couple of simple examples would just be expired product that has reached the end of its shelf life, so it's no longer safe to be used in the case. Using the G10 standard to track lot and expiration along with the device identifier plays a key role in managing those types of things. And then with regard to recalls, having the unique identifier makes the tracking mechanism more reliable. And without that, and we have seen in the past, without the current standards, and then even currently today with some compliance issues, some products can slip through the cracks due to mislabeling or poor compliance with the standard.
Human error. A clarification there on the UDI unique identification. Is it serialized or is it just unique to the product?
I might have to get back to you on the specifics of that, but there is what is called a device GUID, which is a different type of identifier that is uniquely generated every time there is a new entry in the FDA's database, which, by the way, is called the Access Good ID database. And that website is totally open to the public. Anybody can view it, look at all the product data. So the UDI should be unique, but there is the capacity for the same product to be entered twice. And then it basically looks like two different products as listed, but in fact, they are the same product.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Because we've seen in other areas where it's unique identification. But it's, like it's a can of soda. We know what type of soda it is. It's a cola. And so that type of cola gets a unique identifier, but whether you have can 1 or 1 million or 1,132, it's the same identifier. But in other areas, we see it where it's serialized. So yes, this is unique, but this is can 1, this is can 2, this is can 2,500, and 30.
There is space for multiple. I'm going to choose my words carefully because there's a couple different concepts here. But one product can have multiple identifiers. So there is your primary DI, which is the main UDI. Then you can have, for like in the case of your cola, your case of cola, your pallet of cola. So you can have your package DI, your box DI, and things like that. So there's levels of granularity when tracking products. And hospitals have, or suppliers have, the option to track their inventory in that way. If they say they want to scan a box that contains 10 units, they can scan 10 into inventory. Or if they just want to scan, the individual package and decrement from inventory that way, they can do so as well.
Are there any new regulations or industry trends on the horizon that we should be aware of?
So right now, this system is voluntarily maintained. It is not enforced, but enforcement may be coming. And I would recommend that people pay attention to the outcomes of the Drug Supply Chain Security Act to use as a reference point. That one is in relation to pharmaceuticals, because we know that the government is using that legislation and the outcomes to determine future legislation. So if the Good ID database and UDI became enforceable, you could see some of the similar measures that were in place for that act coming in future legislation.
And for our acronym hungry people, that's the DSCSA, right? Drugstore, what was it? No?
Drug Supply Chain Security Act.
There you go. See, this is why I said it.
Yep.
Yeah. Drug Supply Chain Security Act.
Yep.
Alphabet
So,
soup.
one of the we keep going back to UDI. I'm so sorry.
That's great.
Since 2014, I'm sure that there's been things, compliance issues and pitfalls that have happened throughout the supply chain. Do you have any antidotes? That's the wrong way of saying the word. Do you have any stories that you can tell us about any of those and how to avoid them?
We started out as a company pre-Good ID, pre-UDI. And so it was very much a Wild West. Device labeling was kind of up to the individual manufacturers, and then the individual hospitals might even have their own identification system that they kept with in-house, and then they would have to basically, through relationships with vendors like who have knowledge inside the hospital, to be able to go out and say, okay, I need this product and that product. So with a more unified system, those different entities can talk to each other. But when it breaks apart is when the guidelines and the standards are not followed. So an anecdote that I might think of is we have seen, and again, I won't name names either, but we have seen companies harness UDI for almost like manufacturer location tracking. So they'll have a G10 for their factories in one location and then have another DI for someplace else. And so that will create what we call multiple UDIs, where you have in the database the same product listed, 2, 3, maybe even more, as many as 5 or 6 times in the same database, but it's in fact one product. And what that will do to you is that if a hospital is expecting one specific UDI, and then the status changes somewhere else in the records, they have no way of knowing, because they're trusting that the UDI that they captured once upon a time is in fact still the relevant identifier.
Yeah, wow. That I could see that easily happening, and people are moving fast and doing their jobs and not, looking 2 or 3 steps back or 2 or 3 steps ahead. They're just looking at what I need to do right now, and boom, I put the order in and it's going through. With that being said, do you have any recommendations for our audience on, where to find the best information and how to have the best practices? Or are there work groups out there to kind of help out with this?
The best place to go right now, if you are involved in hospital supply chain and you run into any issues, there's voluntary reporting forms on the FDA's Access Good ID website. And so the best method that we can think of right now in lieu of enforcement at the moment is that people just get out and use this system and let their vendors and their suppliers know how integral it is to their process. Because when I'm talking about these compliance issues, I am talking about a very small percentage of the products overall. So we have a very efficient system right now that is largely functional.
This has been awesome, Chris. And I know that patient safety is so important in the work that you do and everybody else does. And when you start talking about this open database, it just makes my heart warmer from a patient. And when you talk about interoperability and these unique identifiers, it makes me feel better as my mother's going into the hospital soon for a minor procedure. But right, everybody, we're all working on the same team. So as we're wrapping up, Reid and I ask our guests 2 questions. The first is, what is your favorite technology right now? It can be something you're using in your professional life or in your personal life.
Okay, great. So it's nerd time.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I have a physical piece of technology right here that I use. I've been scribbling cat scratches on this Remarkable 2, which is a e-ink notebook, basically. So it's like a Kindle, but you write on it, and it's just incredible. Like, I don't have that giant stack of notebooks that I can't remember where the specific note from one meeting is. I just have it all right here. And then it's got some cool tech under the hood where at the end of the week, you can just send it to the cloud and it will convert your notes to text. So then you can take it to, your Teams or Google Docs or whatever you need to distribute it to your team. So,
and my understanding too, because I tried the Remarkable 1, but the writing experience is more like, it's not exactly like writing on paper, but it's not like writing on glass that you have with other tablets.
Correct. Yeah, it's got a decent amount of scratchiness to it to kind of mimic
you get a little feedback from the texture.
Yeah, and I also do some sketching and drawing, and I use it for that too, just to
that's awesome.
Scribble some stuff during meetings or whatever. So.
Yeah, that's very cool. We have a couple people in the office that have them, and I'm always like, I have to take that for a test drive.
Yeah, at first it feels a little bit like an indulgent luxury item, but then when you realize how much it becomes your companion at work and otherwise, you're like, oh yeah, this actually really is helping out quite a lot.
Yeah. And they say too that if you write it with your hand, you remember it more than if you type it on a keyboard.
I believe that.
Yeah. That's what they say, Liz, but I don't know who they are. Okay. So last question is, just something we'd like to know that has impacted your life. Like, it's a moment that any time of your life where you ran into a situation, it blew your mind, and you looked at the world differently going forward. Like, you just saw it differently.
So the vast majority of the 10 years that we've been working with the GS1 standard and the UDI, we've been dealing with linear barcodes. So your standard,
your standard straight vertical lines, not your QR code or data matrix and Digimarks and other 2D barcodes.
Absolutely. And we encountered a fair amount of problems with those barcodes. They were kind of fragile in the clinical setting when things are happening fast. A product packaging gets ripped open, then all of a sudden you can't capture the barcode. You have to stop if you're the clinician and capture the product in the case. And we've been seeing a slow but steady rollout of those 2D and data matrix barcodes that you just mentioned. And we find them to be, anecdotally anyway, more robust, less prone to misfires. And so that's an encouraging thing that manufacturers are looking for areas of improvement. And especially as we're able to track basically everything, you can fit that little barcode on a very small packaging and then and still have accurate data capture. So I would say, and then to maybe back up a little bit, is that just this whole system as a whole, from our standpoint, has been a massive help to hospitals, both in the clinical setting and on the supply chain side, because there's a whole lot less mystery. And so that in itself is kind of mind blowing, considering where we were back in 2014, when many things were basically limited to being on a physical ledger. You didn't even have one of these back then.
Yeah, that blows my mind, Liz, that they were still writing things down, lots of, and we all know how doctors write, I mean, come on. I mean, I write like one. I only play a doctor on TV. But that does blow my mind. 2014, we started digitizing, that environment. And this is another aspect that I don't know if a lot of folks made the correlation, but when the barcode started being utilized 50 years ago, it was at grocery at the point of sale. So when you say clinician side, that's like the OR, the operating room where, things are being used. That's kind of equivalent to the retail checkout. But then the supply chain is the inventory management, supply chain visibility. How much do we have in stock? Where is it? Where is it going? How long is the destination? All those types of things on the supply chain that no one thought of when it was originally started. And it's interesting. So we run an annual conference for all of our members called Connect. And it's funny because it's purposely named Connect. Connect with your industry, connect with your partners, connect with vendors. But cross connect, it always amazes me how folks come in and they're like, I am so glad it's not just retail only and it includes grocery and it includes healthcare, because you're all learning from one another. It's like, we have the exact same problem. It's just a different vertical, but it's the exact same problem. It's deliveries, storage, expiration dates. Does it need to be kept in cold storage? I'm thinking like penicillin versus, it's gauze pads, right? So you have napkins versus yogurt. It's the same thing at the grocery store. It's, there's so many similarities. So I really appreciate that. That's blown your mind.
We've definitely come a long way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Chris, that's all the time we have for today. Really appreciate you being on. And thanks again. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks so much, Reid. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1US. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe to our feed and explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.